Welcome to Learning Dorico. I'm composer and educator Dr. Scott Watson, and in this video, I'll attempt to give an introductory overview of Dorico Pro. Dorico is a professional music notation app used to typeset all manner of music, from simple lead sheets to large ensemble scores. Because it can do so much, it takes time to learn all its many features and tools. This video, and those in the series that follow, are kind of like the tip of the Dorico iceberg. There is much below the surface to learn, eventually. But there are many practical and useful things even new users can do with Dorico. This series for new Dorico users starts out simply and introduces increasingly more advanced tools for more expressive musical scores. As the ancient proverb says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. First, a few preliminary items. As new users begin to use Dorico, they will certainly encounter questions and need help. Here are a few helps I've found useful. First, Google. There are thousands of users posting helpful answers to Dorico questions on the internet. In most cases, a quick search yields great videos and text explanations of exactly what you need. If you want to know something about how to enter triplets with Dorico, just Google search Dorico : how to enter triplets, and you'll get everything you need. Also, the manufacturer has an excellent forum in which helpful moderators and fellow Dorico users post answers to most of the questions you'll have. You can always go to that forum and post a question or look for answers. Finally, there are excellent PDF quick reference guides that you can download and print out from the manufacturer website. I've done just that, and I keep these with me when I'm using Dorico for quick reference, and I encourage you to do the same. I also want to mention that these videos were created with me using Dorico on a Macintosh computer, so all the key commands that I share will be Macintosh key commands. No worries if you're a Windows user. Just get the Dorico quick reference guide because all of the Windows equivalents are on those PDFs. Okay, let's dive into Dorico's graphic user interface. A logical place that most people might start would be menus like File, Edit, View, Write, Play, etc. There's a lot of great stuff here, but you're going to end up using a handful of keyboard shortcuts, and so you probably won't use these menus as much as you think. But I just wanted to say, what's in them, like when you're in the File menu, that's where you'd start a new document. But of course, you're going to use Command-N to start a new document a lot of times. You can also start from different templates, like say under Band, you could do a concert band template, or under Jazz, you could do a jazz trio or something like that. Solo, you could do a lead sheet. Anyway, opening existing documents. This is all the standard stuff you'd find in a file menu, saving a document that you've been working on. You can also import XML from another notation app or from a DAW. You could import MIDI or from anything else that saves as MIDI files, and you can export same way. And you can also print. Probably the one unique thing here is this project info, where you actually enter the title there rather than on the document itself. So for this lead sheet, I entered the title here, and then it shows up here. I also wanted to point out that under Project Info, not only do you have project, but you also have flow. That's a unique thing to Dorico. Flows are like movements in a multi-movement work. So say you had a first, second, and third movement of a 3-movement piece. Each of those would be a flow. They'd all be part of the same Dorico document, but flow 1 would be the first movement, and flow 2 would be the second movement, and so forth. Here, where we have a lead sheet and we don't actually need to have multiple movements, I've actually turned off the appearance of flow. I just have one thing, and I'll show you how to do that coming up. But anyway, that's the file menu. And then under edit menu, all the normal things you'd find, like cut, copying, and pasting of score elements. That's certainly here. Also being able to flip the direction of the stems. So anything that you want to edit that's already in there. This is also useful, concert pitch and transpose pitch. So, flute or violin or just concert pitch instruments, they don't transpose. But say you were writing for B-flat trumpet or horn and F. There you could turn on the transposition or turn it off, and sometimes that's helpful. People like to enter in concert pitch but then see what it looks like transposed. So that's how that is done. Here in the view menu, the biggest thing would be page view, galley view. Right now you're looking at page view, but either through the view menu you could change it here, or you could change it down here. Galley view is more like a scroll that goes left to right, and you can see the whole document that way. A lot of people like to enter in Galley, enter notes in Galley, and then kind of look at the layout more in page view. So that was view. And this is also the view menus where you do zooming in and zooming out. So there is, menu items for zoom in. I like to use the keyboard shortcut. Command plus gets me zoomed in, and Command minus gets me zoomed out. So that's very useful there. And then in the right menu, there's a bunch of things that you'll end up using for like entering the note input mode to enter notes on your score, or to tell Dorico how many bars you want in your score, or what is the meter, the time signature. A lot of these things are preceded by shift in the keyboard shortcut. For like shift M would be meter, shift K would be key, and shift D would be dynamics, and so forth. So lots of great stuff in the right menu here. And then the play menu is just to get your file to play back. This is also where you record, which is like real-time recording. What Finale users know as Hyperscribe, where you can actually record things by playing it on a MIDI keyboard, and then Dorico will put it on the staff. But primarily playing things from wherever the playhead position is. The space bar is your shortcut there, but you can do it here. Or you could select something. You could say, I'd like to play it from here. So you select that, and then go to the play menu and start from that selection. Notice the shortcut is P, but it'll start to play back. Right. Anyway, so all the play options are here, and we'll talk more about playing. Library has the big thing here would be these 5 things: engraving options, layout options, notation options, note input, and playback. I'll talk about those in a minute, but those are the ones you'll probably visit the most here under library. And then there's a window menu. I'm not going to talk too much about this in the help and script. The reason I went over those is because that's where a lot of people start with a program, is from the menus. I want to sort of take a different approach. Just know that you will be able to find those things in the menus, but you're more likely to use keyboard shortcuts. All right, let's look at the user interface from the standpoint that you're just launching Dorico and you're ready to start. You could click on Create New and start from a template, but I'm going to encourage you to start from scratch, like New Command N, which again, I'd use the keyboard shortcut rather than from the menu item. But the first thing you'll be asked is, what instruments do you want to have in your score? So for instance, say we're going to do a lead sheet where we just have a single instrument. So you click on Add Single Player, and then I'm going to choose from woodwinds oboe. I like using that instrument. And notice that as soon as I say that, I have to add it. Right now I have a Dorico score for a single instrument oboe. I'm going to resize the windows here. And I have these panels over here on the left, and on the right are different panels. And then on the bottom, I can close these panels with these little arrows here. Right? So I'm going to close the panels for now. And what I want to talk about is these 5 modes here: setup, write, engrave, play, and print. So setup mode is actually the mode where you added the oboe and you got ready to do your score. We're not going to use that a whole lot here, but it is something we'll have to revisit when we add instruments and things like that. Write mode is the one you'll use the most. You can be in page view or galley view, but write mode is where you actually put the notes in, right? So that's what we have over here, this notes panel, and we can choose the durations and so forth. And then over here, there's different playing techniques and things like that in these panels. So putting the notes in the write mode is going to be a big part of your work in Dorico. We'll come back to this briefly. Engrave mode is actually where you make it look like it's supposed to look in the layout and the formatting and all that for printed music. And I know it looks kind of complicated at first, but again, engraving is sort of the thing you do after you get your notes in. Then the play mode is actually more like a digital audio workstation or a DAW, where you have multiple tracks, in this case only one because we only have one instrument, but we have mixers, and this is more the playback, right? And then the print mode is what would it look like when we're ready to print it, and then this is how we do. We'll print out either to a printer or to a PDF or whatever. Okay, and so that you don't constantly have to use your mouse, right, you could also use the shortcut. Command 1 gets you the setup mode, Command 2 is in write mode, Command 3 engrave mode, Command 4 the play mode, and then Command 5 the print mode. So you're probably going to be in the write mode for most of the time that you're creating a project. Let's go back to, in the file menu, that project info. So for instance, say we're going to do a lead sheet. I could use the shortcut Command I, or I could just choose it from here. And let me go ahead and put in lead sheet example as our title. And let's say the composer is, say it's a traditional tune, right, that we don't know who wrote it. It's so old. Here I'm going to put arranger, arranged by me, Scott Watson. All right. I mentioned that a flow is like a movement, and I'm going to actually be turning off the flow. So for now, I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm just going to remind you that we have lead sheet example by traditional, and then arranger Scott Watson. Got to click apply, and then we're back here. Now notice that we don't see the arranger. That's a function of just the template for this page. It doesn't include a spot to put arranger. And also notice that we have flow, but we don't really want to have a flow. So that's where I'm going to show you, in addition to these 5 modes, remember how I mentioned that there was 5 options: engraving option, layout option, notation option, note input option, and playback option. So we're going to set up Dorico to work the way we want it to in terms of, let's say, layout options. So again, the shortcut I could have done to get in that would be Shift Command L, and that gets me to the layout option. All right, so the first thing, let's remove the flows. So under layout option, under page setup, and then under flows, I can say never show flow headings, just never show it, right? And then apply that. When I go back to my score, notice it doesn't have that flow heading anymore. Go back in here again, and if that's the way you always want it, to never show that flow heading, you could actually say save that as a default, and it becomes the way that Dorico will always start out with. So that's something you have to think about. If you're going to be doing almost no multiple movement works, maybe you do want to have it say never show the flow heading. Anyway, another thing is I'd like to see arranger, down here. That's going to be in engrave mode. And engrave mode has a bunch of different things, like tweaking the way the notes on the page appear, or adding different fields. Well, this is what we want to do. We want to have a field. Let me close this over here. We want to have a field here where it's right now. If I double click in this composer field, you'll see there's what's called a token. This little coding here will place the composer's name there. But what I want below that is to have a field for the arranger. So what I'm going to do is not notes, but right here, I'm going to choose to add a frame, and I'm going to choose to add a text frame. So I click, drag, and hold it right under where the composer was, make it the same length and everything. I'm going to go into the composer token and just select that, and then copy it by Command C, and then go in here and then Command V, or paste it. And let's make the formatting the same over here. Let's make the composer text, so it's the same font size and all that. So I chose composer, and now I have composer, but I'm going to change the word composer to arranger. And now I have a token for the arranger, and now it's accessing where I said arranged by Scott Watson. It's actually accessing that. So if I want to have an arranger show, I'd have to sort of tweak under engrave mode. Why doesn't it just automatically do that? I guess Dorico thinks as a default, it doesn't want to show an arranger unless you really want it to. So, and there's a lot of other ways to get that, but that's just maybe the simplest way. Okay, so let's go back to the write mode and say we got our lead sheet title here. We've got our composer, we've got our arranger, but we don't have any notes. So let's go ahead and set up the measures to put notes in. Now, I just want to say that number one, there will be a video. The next video will actually be all about note entry basics. So I'm going to show you just a little bit about note entry here, but look for the next video for note entry basics, and we'll go into a lot deeper dive. Anyway, let's first tell Dorico what the meter is. And the meter is going to be 4/4. Remember in the write menu, For time signature, I could say Shift M. Well, I'm going to do that right now using the keyboard shortcut Shift M. And what appears is what's called a popover, which is kind of a unique thing in Dorico. These little text fields where you can type stuff in this case, the time signature. So I'm going to type the most intuitive thing for 4/4, 4/4, and hit the return key, and boom, now it's in 4/4. I'm going to also, again, use the Shift B. I'm going to use the shortcut rather than going to the right menu. I'm going to do Shift B and tell it I want it to be 16 bars, and look at that. By the way, don't worry about the layout. Maybe you eventually only want 4 bars per system. That's something that we'll do in Engrave mode, or that actually Dorico will automatically do for you. But we'll just leave it the way it is right now. Let's put it in the key of E flat. So I'm going to use Shift K for key signature, and look at that, another popover. Capital E means major, and then a little lowercase b is for flat, E flat. So this will be E flat major. If I wanted it in E flat minor, I would do lowercase e like that. But we want E flat major, and hit the return key, and there we go. So we're using popovers to get these things that like the key and the time signature. By the way, I want to get rid of the word oboe, and now we're going to use one of these options that we talked about before. I'm going to go back to layout options, but in this time, rather than we were in flow a moment ago, for layout options, I'm going to go to staves and systems, and I'm going to say that I don't want to show the staff label on the first system, and I don't want to show the staff label on subsequent systems. And again, if that's always the way you want it, and be careful because it probably isn't, you could save it as a default, but I'm going to just say for this document, let's not show those staff labels. Hit apply, go back, and notice we don't see the word oboe there any longer. Okay, so we are ready to put in some notes, but for one other thing, I want to visit the Engrave mode. I kind of don't like how close this first system is to the arranger's name, so I'm going to go to Engrave mode. By the way, you have to choose this mode over here, staff spacing, right? We had used the frames before to put the arranger frame in, and I'd mentioned for tweaking notes you'd use this one, but we're going to use staff spacing. And then holding down the Option key, if you just drag this with the Option key, it'll drag all of your systems rather than just the first system, and that uniformly lowers those. So now we have a little more space here. Go back to the right mode, and we can enjoy that space now. Okay, so let's save our document, by the way. We haven't done any saving. Let's go ahead and save it, and let's just call this lead sheet example. And save it wherever you want to. Let's say I want to save it on the desktop. Save it on the desktop. Okay, so that way we don't lose what we've done. Okay, and I wanted to wrap up this intro to Dorico video by giving you a little overview of node entry. Remember, the next video in this series will be a much deeper dive into many more aspects of node entry. This is just a little intro or taste of it. So let's select this measure here, and if I hit the return key, that takes us into node entry mode. The durations can be chosen with the mouse or using keyboard shortcuts. For instance, whole note is 8, half note is 7, quarter note is 6, eighth note is 5, 16th note is 4, and so on. So let's say I want to start with a quarter note, type 6. If I type the letter E, it gives me an E flat. I don't have to, tell it that it's an E flat. It just knows diatonically, or that in the key I want an E flat. By the way, if I wanted the upper octave, I would hold down the Option key and use the arrow up, and I would get that one, or down arrow gets us back down. If I did want an E natural, it would be Shift Option and then hit the arrow, and it gives me the E natural, and then Shift Option down gives me back to E flat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change my next duration to be number 5. I want to have eighth notes, and we'll just go up the scale. I'm typing on the QWERTY keyboard F, G, A, B, C, D, and let's say I want a whole note. I'll type the number 8, and then we'll put that, and notice it knows it's now we're at the top of the scale, right? So that would be one way of putting in notes, and that was where I used the QWERTY key and some of those keyboard shortcuts. Of course, I like to actually use a MIDI keyboard. You have to have a MIDI keyboard controller configured. If it's plugged in by a USB port, chances are it is, but let's go into the Dorico preferences and under play. And if we go down here to MIDI input devices, you can see I have a Casio MIDI keyboard that I'll be using. So it's already configured. So what I'm going to do is actually go into node entry mode. By the way, to get out of node entry mode, hit the escape key. Now we're out. So let me go into node entry mode and press K, which gets me into the notes first. And that means I can play my note here on my MIDI keyboard and then choose the keyboard shortcut for the rhythm and then go up the scale that way. So I'm basically pressing the keys on my keyboard here and then the rhythm second. A lot of people like to do it that way. And if you do, that's an easy way to do it. Some other real quick things I'll go over that will go into much more detail in future videos would be things like, say I wanted to start mezzo forte, let me do Shift D and get the popover for dynamics, type MF, and that's it, right? That's getting that mezzo forte. Or let's say we wanted some slurs in here. Let's say from this note to the next, I just select that note, type S, and it gives me a slur to the very next note. However, say I wanted to slur all 4 of these notes, I would shift click them, right? So let me show you that again. Select the first note, hold the shift key, and it selects all 4 of those notes, type S, and I get the slur over everything. Escape, get out of that. Let's say I wanted this note here to be accented. That would be the forward bracket. Or let's say I wanted it to be staccato, that would be the backward bracket. Or let's say I wanted it to be legato, that would be the slash. So some of those playing techniques you can get in with keyboard shortcuts. And harmonic equivalents would be Option plus or Option minus, right? So that E flat could also be as a D sharp if you did Option. Okay, we've hit the basics, and of course you can check out the next video on note entry for more on that. Hope this video has been helpful in giving you just a general idea of how Dorico works. Good luck to you as you learn Dorico.